Welcome back to more Club World Cup fantasy content. This will be the best wildcard squad for Matchday 5 and beyond. And since the recording of the last video, which was specifically designed for the quarterfinals only, we have all the confirmed quarterfinalists with Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid winning their respective games as expected, but the shocks really came on the Monday as Inter Milan and Man City were both knocked out. So we have a few wildcards in the quarterfinal stage. And speaking of which, if you still have that chip, I think Matchday 5 is a brilliant time to use it. I may have gained a lot of points by activating the booster back in Matchday 3, but I think the wildcard would be so handy right now with over half of my team either eliminated or suspended. I'll discuss my plans about what I'm going to do with 4 free transfers and possibly taking multiple hits in my team selection video and podcast, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But in this video, I'll be discussing the best 50-man squad for Matchday 5 and beyond using the wildcard chip. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below as always, and also be very careful about the bracket and be very wary of the potential semi-final and of course the Club World Cup finals. So on one side of the bracket you've got Palmeiras versus Chelsea, and the winner of that game will face either Fluminense or Al Hilal. You could see this as the easier side of the draw, but on the other side we've got PSG against Bayern Munich, and that could pretty much be the final in of itself, and the winner of that game could be the favourites to win the whole thing. But let's not forget Real Madrid, who will face Borussia Dortmund, and the winner of that game will face either PSG or Bayern Munich. So if you are picking goalkeepers, for example, on the wild card, ideally you'd pick one goalkeeper from the left side of the bracket and then one on the right side. I didn't actually do that with the best team for Matchday 5 in the podcast yesterday because that team was specifically designed for Matchday 5 only. And one thing to note is that multiple players are suspended. So if a player has picked up 2 bookings in this tournament, they will miss out in the quarterfinal stage. Piquerez is one such example from Palmeiras, and Joe Bellingham picked up his 2nd booking yesterday against Monterrey. So that is going to also cause some complications with a lot of our teams, and the wildcard, I think, is a very powerful booster, and this is the perfect time to use it. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim is to get this to over 200 likes on YouTube and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 34,000 subscribers. Check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League and Spotify can also be found in the description. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Even if you're not using the wildcard this week, I think these podcasts are very helpful to identify the best squads in every given match day. I do the same thing for FPL and UCL Fantasy as well, and it gives you ideas of players to buy and the teams to target. We have a 105 million budget once the knockout stages began, so from Matchday 4, we got that 5 million increase to our budget, and it makes it a little bit easier to get multiple premiums, especially in the midfield and forward line. But I'm going to start off with the 2 goalkeepers as always, and they're completely different to the goalkeepers discussed in the best team video. Gianluigi Donnarumma, the heir by name to the legendary Buffon, is the 4th highest scoring goalkeeper in Club World Cup Fantasy, and you've got plenty of options between the sticks, and a lot depends on the teams you back to go far in this tournament. And for me, PSG would be the favourites to win the entire competition. It is Bayern Munich in the quarterfinal stage and potentially Real Madrid in the semi-finals, and even if they were to go through and Real Madrid were knocked out, it's still a decent kind of level of opposition in Borussia Dortmund. But I think PSG can still beat anybody that's right in front of them, and that's why Donnarumma was one of my first picks on the kind of unlimited transfers in Matchday 4. He might not be the kind of most exciting option because you've got Nuno Mendes and Hakimi for the attacking threat. You've also got all the attackers that PSG have to offer in the midfield, but I think Donnarumma is a 7-figure option, and that's what you need on the wild card, especially at this stage of the competition where you have so many suspended players and also eliminations. All those upsets from Matchday 4 will cost those non-wildcarders, in my opinion, and I'm only one of them, so I'm going to discuss my plans to rectify those problems in my own setup. But the second goalkeeper is Robert Sanchez. He only has 12 points in this competition, so you might be looking at this and thinking, I'm not so sure about this. But when I also look at Matchday 5, I think Chelsea have a good chance of a clean sheet, and Palmeiras are missing multiple key players, mainly in their defensive line, like Piquerez due to suspension. He picked up his 2nd booking against Botafogo, but Gustavo Gomez got sent off. He was issued a 2nd yellow, and that was converted into a red, of course, and now he's also going to miss out against Chelsea, who would be the favourites to progress to the semi-finals, and you also look at the potential opponents there in Matchday 6, and I'm not saying that Chelsea can't lose, because they definitely can, and they weren't completely secure against Benfica, even if you think the penalty is controversial and all of that. I think Chelsea deserved to win the game in the end, and Robert Sanchez isn't the best goalkeeper pick in isolation, but looking at clean sheet chances in Matchday 5 and potentially 6, I think Chelsea would be right up there, even higher than PSG, who are a better team than them. But in terms of the opposition, I think Chelsea have the best route to the final now, with the likes of Man City and Inter Milan both knocked out from that side of the bracket. But don't underestimate the likes of Al Hilal, Fluminense, and of course their upcoming opponent, Palmeiras. They are all still very decent sides, and they're all capable of beating Chelsea, but I still think the Blues have the best chance of reaching the final of any team, bar Paris Saint-Germain, who have the toughest route to that Club World Cup final. So those are my two goalkeepers, but in terms of other options to consider, you could basically say anybody. Fabio, Weverton, Courtois, they would be my other three favourite options, I think, from the other teams. I'd probably discount Manuel Neuer. I think he's had a decent tournament, actually, and it's an improvement from his recent performances for Bayern Munich, but I think PSG will score in that game, and I also back them to go through to the next round and not Bayern Munich. And in terms of other options, I'm not as keen on them, especially Kobel. He'd probably be ranked 7th or 8th amongst the quarter-finalists overall. So apart from Donnarumma and Sanchez, you may want to consider Fabio, Weverton and Courtois. Out of those three, my favourite will be the Belgian shot stopper from Real Madrid. My recommendation is to cover Los Blancos defensively with one option, and Fran Garcia is my favourite. It may have been Trent Alexander-Arnold getting the assist in Matchday 4, but Fran Garcia hasn't blanked in this tournament, and he's in the top 5 highest scoring defenders in the game so far, and he's had a few assists himself throughout this campaign. And you could also go for him and Courtois simultaneously, and I would urge you to go for these double or triple ups for teams that you're backing to keep a clean sheet in Matchday 5, or perhaps go far in this competition, and Real Madrid would be one of them. And if it wasn't for PSG, who would be their potential semi-final opponents, I'd be very bullish on Real Madrid winning the entire tournament, or at least going to the final. But their side of the bracket is definitely tough, and I think Fran Garcia is still a good option against Dortmund. I think a clean sheet is actually possible. The last time these two teams met was in the Champions League final, and it was a very comfortable win there for Real Madrid in the end. They won 2-0, and Dortmund may have had some big chances and stuff like that. Fran Garcia wasn't even starting that game, but I think Madrid have looked pretty solid defensively in the last 2 games in particular, and Fran Garcia is getting those 7 and 9 pointers as well. His ownership is over 5%, so he no longer qualifies for the scouting bonus, but he remains a good option nonetheless in Club World Cup Fantasy. Next up will be an Al Hilal defender, and you can take your pick here, whether it's Koulibaly, do you go for Bono in goal? I think he's also a decent shout that I probably should have mentioned as well. And you also have Lodi, who is the cheapest option of the lot. But if you do have the funds, I would recommend Joao Cancelo because of the attacking threat, and he provided a brilliant assist against his former club, Man City, in that 4-3 thriller where Al Hilal prevailed in extra time. But Koulibaly can score from set pieces, which we also saw in that game. But in terms of open play threat, Cancelo offers by far the most attacking potential in that Al Hilal side, and I wouldn't even mind doubling up on their defence overall. But you could say the same thing about Fluminense, and that's why I'm going for Freitas, who is the highest scoring defender in this game right now with 36 points. And you could also go for his teammate Samuel Javier, maybe even both of them at the same time, and they're both extremely cheap. Javier costs 4.2 million and Freitas is only 4.1 million. In terms of ownership though, and you want to go for those kind of scouting bonus players and be different from the rest of the pack, you may want to go for Samuel Javier instead, because he does qualify for the scouting bonus and his ownership is around 1% at this moment in time, and Freitas is becoming increasingly more template, so to speak, or at least he's not going to be a differential who qualifies for those all-important scouting bonus. That's not the be-all and end-all, but if you were to kind of go for those low-owned players, I think the goalkeepers and defensive line is where you really want to go for those low-owned players and get the 2 additional points for keeping a clean sheet, because that could easily turn into a 9 and perhaps even 11 if you activate the qualification booster as well. Let's complete this defensive line though. There are 2 slots left, and I would go for one more defensive double up here in Levi Colwill and Chelsea, and ultimately you could definitely double up on any of these teams that are covered here. Real Madrid, Fluminense, Al Hilal, Chelsea, whichever team you're backing to go through to the next round or keep a clean sheet in Matchday 5 at least, and I think Chelsea have a great route to the final. So Colwill isn't a great pick by himself, and he's only got 10 points in this tournament, 9 of which came in Matchday 1 against Los Angeles. The rest has been really underwhelming. He didn't play one game. He also got 0 points and then 1 point. So it's been very poor from him. But the likes of Cucurella only have 8 points, for example. He offers so much attacking potential though, and you could argue that a return is coming. And Reece James scored a brilliant free kick against Benfica to catch out Trubin, who had a pretty shaky game at the time as well. But I think Colwill was probably the best Chelsea defender because of the scouting bonus, and he's fairly nailed on in this Club World Cup side, at least because he wasn't in the Europa Conference League. But the last defender is the best of them all, in my opinion, in Hakimi, who has been arguably the best captaincy option of any player in the game for the last 2 match days. He scored against Seattle Sounders and kept a clean sheet and was also subbed off early. The same happened against Inter Miami, another waddle, another goal, and he's been brilliant for the last month or so. He scored in the Coupe de France final and also against Inter Milan, his former club, in the Champions League final. So he is a man of big moments. He can score, assist, get clean sheet points, you name it. And I think PSG are still worth covering defensively, even with this double up against one of the best sides in Bayern Munich. Before the last Premier League campaign, one of my predictions was that Pedro Neto wouldn't score 5 Premier League goals, and in fact he only got 4. He always gets the assists and he is a good player, especially with the dribbling, but his goal scoring can definitely be, something very questionable about him. But in this tournament, he has scored 3 goals in 3 appearances, and I think he's been improving game upon game, and he is one of the biggest threats that Chelsea have to offer. So I think it's actually worth doubling up on their attack with Pedro Neto and Cole Palmer. But there's also Delap up front, and you could even go for Enzo Fernandez in the midfield as a cheaper option. And there is the possibility that Joao Pedro is registered in time to play Palmeiras and he could be in the squad. He hasn't trained for a while because of disciplinary issues, but that is something else that could come into the mix, and he might be added too late into the game maybe. So even if he is on the bench against Palmeiras in Matchday 5, he might not actually be a Club World Cup fantasy asset, but it's definitely worth mentioning. But I think Palmer and Pedro Neto are the 2 best midfielders that Chelsea have to offer, and across all their attacking positions, including the forward line, these are the 2 that I would highlight for Matchday 5 and beyond. Next up will be a Fluminense asset in Arias, but you might be favouring Al Hilal instead to progress to the semi-finals, so you could go for Milinkovic-Savic, and with Salim Al-Dawsari, he was my favourite option, but he didn't play against Man City in the round of 16. But Arias was absolutely everywhere against Inter Milan, as I mentioned in my previous podcast. And if you watch the highlights or if you watch the game live, you could see that everything went through him. So I would definitely recommend going for someone like Arias as a cheaper option. I only had him in Matchday 3 and it was a bit disappointing, but he still had a good performance overall, and he always looks like a constant threat there for Fluminense, and he's one of the best options at his price tag and below. But to complete this midfield, I am going to go for a kind of risky pick here in Ousmane Dembele, who made his first appearance against Inter Miami as a substitute, and he could be in a good position to start actually for Matchday 5, but it isn't a guarantee. So if you want to go a bit safer, Desiree Doué, Vitinha and Kvaratskhelia are all great options for their respective price tags. Doué hasn't really been doing it for the goals and the assists yet, but I think they will come with time if PSG continue to advance in this tournament. But Ousmane Dembele is the one with the highest ceiling if he's fully fit and ready to start games, get 70 plus minutes at the very least. But this is a risky pick, and I will talk about some alternatives later on, not just from the PSG midfield, but also from other teams too. The final midfielder though is Jude Bellingham, and how is he the one who isn't suspended for the next game, but his brother is, Joe Bellingham, because this Jude guy just swears at referees. You know how he is, he can be a little bit feisty, but somehow he's still available. Only 1 yellow card in this competition, but that's all the better for Real Madrid because this guy is a man of big moments. His late runs into the box and his positioning is a great asset of his, but not only can he play as an attacking midfielder, but also in a box-to-box role, as we saw during his time at Borussia Dortmund, who he will now face once again in the quarter-finals. And for England, he has played in an even deeper position, so he is quite versatile in that midfield, and no matter what the role is, he is always involved and he's got that chance of scoring. From that Real Madrid midfield, he is my favourite option, but let's not discount Arda Güler, who has been starting every single game for them, and he's putting in some great performances there for Los Blancos. So those are the 2 standouts in the midfield for Real Madrid, and up front, I would completely discount Rodrigo, who has been benched in 3 consecutive games now, and he's heavily linked with a move away to clubs like Arsenal. So I think Rodrigo is out of the question, but that doesn't mean you can't double up on that Real Madrid attack. Another risky premium to go for, who happens to be French as well, is Kylian Mbappe. just like Ousmane Dembele, they both have 1 point in this tournament, and they made the return in matchday 4 as a substitute. But if I had to kind of rank their chance of starting in the next game, I think Mbappe would be higher. And Xabi Alonso actually said this 2 days ago in preparation of that matchday 4 game against Juventus, that Mbappe was very likely to start. He didn't do so, and Gonzalo Garcia, his temporary replacement in this tournament, scored once again, and it was the winning goal. But in that first half against Juventus, Los Blancos missed multiple big chances, and I think with Mbappe, that wouldn't happen as often because he is lethal in most matches. So I think it's worth going for Mbappe here if you're backing him to start. If you want to kind of just go for the safer picks, then Vinicius Jr. is definitely going to be in that squad no matter what. With Mbappe, he might make another appearance off the bench and then be ready for the semi-finals should Real Madrid make it that far. And another thing I discussed in my best team video and podcast is to go for Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. simultaneously. And if you want to go for the jugular and you're all in on Real Madrid, you can also have Arda Güler or Bellingham in the midfield to triple up on their attack. And I also like Courtois in goal and Fran Garcia in that defensive line. But next up will be Harry Kane. I am backing PSG to go through, but Bayern still have a chance, of course, because they are a good team, and their win against Flamengo was still impressive. I think their defense is definitely quite suspect, but their attack is still one of the very best in this competition, and Harry Kane scored 2 brilliant goals. It's just a shame he couldn't do that against Auckland City back in matchday 1, but he is arguably the best striker in world football right now, and he continues to deliver for both club and country, and his goal-scoring record is simply ridiculous. But the same goes for Leandro. At least in this tournament, he is the second highest scoring forward in this game at the moment, and honestly, I'm surprised he isn't top. But Gonzalo Garcia has 1 more point than him, and if you are backing Garcia to start, you could even go for him over Mbappe, and it is possible to actually have this sort of forward structure with 2 budget forwards and then go all out on the midfield with Elise there. You could also have Kvaratskhelia alongside Dembele or Bellingham, you name it. So you could actually do something like Pedro Neto and Arias to those really expensive midfielders, whilst downgrading Mbappe to Gonzalo Garcia if you're backing him to start once more. Let me know down in the comment section below if you think Mbappe will start in matchday 5, and if so, will you go for him and make him a priority with your free transfers or on the wildcard, as discussed in this video. In this section, you can see a few alternatives to the main wildcard squad I discussed throughout this video. So you get rid of the kind of rotation risks or those that are just coming off the back of an injury, like Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele, and you can replace them with the likes of Vinicius Jr., and you could even just go in a different direction in the midfield. So in this particular example, you can replace Dembele with Doué as a like-for-like replacement there for Paris Saint-Germain. And in goal, I've gone for Courtois instead of Donnarumma, and doubling up on Real Madrid defensively instead of Paris Saint-Germain. Garcia remains alongside Freitas and Hakimi, but there are 2 new defenders here in Cucurella for the attacking threat over Colwill, but there is no scouting bonus available there. And you've also got Koulibaly instead of João Cancelo. And if you are backing Fluminense to go through, you can double up on their defense with Samuel Javier and Freitas, which gives you even more money in the bank. So with this particular squad, there is 0.3 million left over, and with the original wildcard team discussed throughout most of this video, there is nothing left over. So that team would cost 105 million on the dot. In the midfield, you've also got Vitinha. If you want to double up on that PSG midfield, he's got the set piece threat, he's on penalties, and he can also get the odd goal or assist from open play, and he's currently one of the best midfielders in world football. And up front, I've also gone for a differential in Germán Gano. The Argentine has been a brilliant goal scorer over the years for Fluminense, and in this tournament he has scored some crucial goals, including that opener against Inter Milan, which gave the foundations for Fluminense to secure that famous victory over Inter Milan. But that is the 15-man squad overall, with different options discussed from all of these teams, and as you can see, I'm kind of favouring Real Madrid, Chelsea and PSG the most of all of these squads. But in terms of Al Hilal and Fluminense, I do see that as almost 50-50. That could go either way, in my opinion. They're both very solid sides and they've got their own qualities, and it could also just be a question of tactics on the day or play style, which one it kind of suits more. So I think the managerial battle there will be crucial, but they both have great options in every single position. That even stems from the goalkeeper, where you can say Weverton and Bono are great options. But no matter what you do, don't pick two goalkeepers who play in the same game. You can still go for two goalkeepers from one side of the bracket, like Robert Sanchez, and you might want to go for Bono, for example, as I discussed in my best team video and podcast. But ideally, you'd have one goalkeeper from the left side of the bracket, so you have Sanchez, and then one on the right, and Courtois or Donnarumma would be great options there as well. So be very mindful about your structure, not just for Matchday 5, but also for the semi-finals and for Matchday 7. The starting 11 for this wildcard squad is as follows. Robert Sanchez is in goal. He plays on the 5th of July, just like Donnarumma, but there's actually a 13-hour difference between their matches, so you have plenty of time to make that substitution if needed. And actually, in the UK, we have one match on the 4th of July, where I'll be going live with that deadline stream, and the rest will take place on the 5th of July. In this defensive line, we've got Joao Cancelo, Colwill, Hakimi, and Freitas. Pedro Neto, Palmer, Dembele, and Arias, who have currently got captain, Harry Kane, and also Leandro up front. Now, I did actually go for Leandro as the captain in the best team video and podcast, but his ownership was like 2%, 1% at the time. It's now 7.8%, so he doesn't qualify for the scouting bonus. And I even said back then, I'm kind of conflicted about the best captain for the first match between Fluminense and Al Hilal. Which team are you backing to go through to the semi-finals? And I'll be honest, I'm still in two minds about that one. And if I'm building a wildcard squad, I'd probably balance it out between those two teams and then pile on the likes of Chelsea, PSG, and Real Madrid. That's the way I'm kind of structuring things at the moment. And that's why on the bench, there's Donnarumma, Garcia, Bellingham, and Kylian Mbappe, who could be a risk to start in Matchday 5, but I still think he will do so. The same goes for Ousmane Dembele as well. And the other options I highlighted earlier, like Elise, Kvaratskhelia, Doué, they are still worth considering, and you might want to displace Dembele if you are fearful of his minutes for the quarterfinals. So I think there are still a few details to iron out, especially with the captaincy for the opening game, but afterwards it's very simple. You then can switch the captain to a player who features in the next set of matches, so that will be Chelsea Palmeiras, and I'd probably go to Cole Palmer there, and then move on to a PSG player, even though Harry Kane is a great option in his own right. Bayern Munich might lose the game, but Kane can still score a goal or two and get a healthy return in the process. And for the final set of matches, if Mbappe starts, he'd be my favourite captain against Borussia Dortmund, and the likes of Vinicius Jr. and Bellingham offer great alternatives for the captaincy from Real Madrid. Maybe a differential like Arda Güler, who's having a great tournament so far, could definitely be considered. And for Borussia Dortmund, I think Guirassy is by far the best option they have to offer. He can be hot or cold, so he can miss multiple big chances in a game like he did against Ulsan HD in Matchday 3, but then score a brace to send Borussia Dortmund through to the quarterfinals against Monterrey. So when he's at it, I think he can be one of the best strikers in this game. But I would rather go for the likes of Kane, Vinicius, Mbappe, even Leandro, amongst a few others that I discussed in this video and podcast. After watching the best team from yesterday and this wildcard squad, you'll be in a great position to tackle the quarterfinals and beyond. And let's not forget, for the captaincy, you can go for defenders in this game, because if they have less than 5% ownership, they will get you 9 points from a clean sheet alone. And with a qualification booster active, you can get up to 11 points from that solitary clean sheet. And if you add a goal or assist on top of it, you could be looking at a massive score. But let's also bear in mind that if you captain a player, the qualification booster doesn't actually apply to the captaincy, so the extra 2 points won't count towards that captaincy score, but they will for any other player you have in your 15-man squad, which might seem very strange. I'm not sure why that is, but there you go. Club World Cup Fantasy is a bit of a strange game, but we all have grown to love it maybe, unless we're doing terribly. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also the notification bell so you never miss a single upload live stream for Club World Cup Fantasy, FPL, and the Champions League. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for my upcoming team selection video for Matchday 5, and the same goes for the 4th of July for the next deadline stream.